We continue with the reading of Pentagon 9/11 from Alpha Goldberg. In this chapter, it's from Chapter 8, Identifying the Dead. While the dead remained in military hands during the forensic investigation, Pentagon officials undertook to see the needs of the living, families of the victims. Such care had long been a solemn and committed obligation of the military establishment. Regulations and procedures provided for assistance to the bereaved. However, the character of the Pentagon disaster made it unique in Department of Defense experience. Its immediacy, the location and scale, and the varied nature of the victims' families and military and civilians, male and female adults, children, and foreign nationals on board the plane. Moreover, the military dead were multi-service, Army and Navy. So, for the fringe conspiracy theorists who don't believe in a plane ever hitting the Pentagon, I mean, look at how many people you would have to involve in this. And you have friends and family of the victims who are given DNA samples such as toothbrushes, combs, articles of clothing to the Dover Mortuary Air Base, which is where they were doing the identifying of the human remains that were found by the FBI, FEMA, Pentagon Police, the Arlington County Fire Department, Fort Myer Fire Department, Fort Belvoir Fire Department, Fort Belvoir, and the Search and Rescue Operations. Forgot the name of the other town. I don't think it's Alexandria, but somewhere else. But look at it. You got state, federal, local officials who found human remains, who found, debris of the plane that was identified by the FBI and the National Transportation Safety Board, American Airlines, to help to identify the plane. And then you got radar, satellite. Well, all of this is planted, and you can't show a shred of evidence that all this was fabricated. The reason why you don't do videos, the reason why you're not in court, it's the reason why you're not active at all. Look, where are all the Christopher Bolin? Where is he? Where's Rebecca Roth? Where's Pilots for 9/11 Truth? Where's Dan Hanley? Where's Richard Gage? Where are Judy Wood? All these people, where are they? Nowhere. Gone. Why? Because they repeat themselves every single time. Barbara Honegger, all these people, they're dead in the water. Some of them are literally dead. And so basically, the only people left talking about 9/11 are, people who actually learn new things and who are showing evidence, who are, showing documents and files and, showing you news reports, which, encompasses a lot of areas within 9/11. The political, the geopolitical, the military, radical fundamentalism, all this. And even today, we still have, we have new information like Canestraro document, the Operation Encore files, the military commissions over there in Guantanamo. I mean, there's always new information coming out. It's slowing down, but still. David Chu, Department of Defense Undersecretary for Personnel and Readiness, exercised overall responsibility for personnel policy. Under his charge came the Office of Family Policy, headed by Meg Folk, which monitored matters relating to the education, medical care, and employment of American dependents at military bases around the world and aided dependents after the death of a service member overseas. As Folk and her staff evacuated their 1B 700 office after the attack, hurrying out by way of the center court to North Parking, then driving to an Air Force office in nearby Crystal City, she began to ponder what needed to be done in the emergency, and realizing that the likelihood of a large number of casualties would require setting up a family assistance center, she sought and received authorization from Chu to do whatever it takes. The most immediate requirement was to find a location for the center that offered adequate space and parking. Another thing about the rapid response of the officials here in Washington, D.C., was that they practiced, after the bombing of the Murrah building in Oklahoma, they wanted to renovate the Pentagon because, of a bomb blast, something, that would, just, kill people with the shrapnel, the broken, the window panes. Something that they found in the East Africa bombings as well as Oklahoma was that there was a lot of bodies that were killed, well, of people standing by the window, and that's why they decided to renovate the Pentagon. They were almost done. John Mosser Mooney secured use of the Crystal City Sheraton Hotel and a little more than a mile from the Pentagon. Now, another reason why there's a rapid response. I mean, this wasn't a planned coordination. This was right at, all these, services, centers, organizations, they basically reacted on the money. Like they had to react right away. So if you're going to say there's a big conspiracy in, hiding evidence or fabricating evidence, well, they had to do it right away, uncoordinated from each other. So that means each unit from the local, federal, state departments, which you claim were all acting as one, they all had to do it right away, within the hour, less than an hour. Some of these people were there in minutes. Arlington County got there, 3 minutes after the plane crashed into the Pentagon. Fort Myer as well. And then after like an hour, you had hundreds of personnel on site. Whether they're just going to throw plane debris all over the plane, broad daylight. One of you actually believed that plane debris is actually hidden in the walls. I can't get over that. To take charge of what became known as the Pentagon Family Assistance Center, Chu turned to the Deputy Assistant Secretary for Military Personnel, Lieutenant General John Van Alstyne, an infantry officer and a Vietnam combat veteran, a reticent man of whom folks spoke as the heart and soul of the center. Chu called him a hero. Van Alstyne had been in the Pentagon only a month when he was confronted with the nightmare scene on September 11th and accepted the sensitive task. A year later, in one of those few remarks he made about his experience, he recalled that he pulled up a desk and chair in the hotel lobby, and that became my command center for family assistance. I mean, he's not even having a fucking office. I mean, some of these people basically used, burnt chairs and broken desks to basically act as an office. And they had to make decisions right then and there. Decisions about what? How to deal with the human remains, how to deal with the weakening of the building, how to deal with the fires, how to deal with the plane debris, how to deal with the identification of human remains and plane debris, how to basically, use security around the building so that, people wouldn't rush to the scene and compromise the crime scene because it's a crime scene. And then you had to facilitate orders to the certain units. That's what James Schwartz did, the command center. He headed the command center in Arlington. You had to facilitate, which units can work in what areas of the building because it's safer in, majority of the building, but wasn't safe at the impact point. There was so much going on. Then you had to deal with the victims' families that were rushing to the scene, how to deal with them, just imagine all this is going on. I know all this right away. For you people to basically sit there and still say that all this was basically planted, all this was facilitated, my God. And I didn't even get into the technical aspects of, making sure that the identification of the plane was through satellite because air traffic control and the National Transportation Safety Board had to basically identify what happened to Flight 77. And then when they found out it was hijacked, they had to call the FBI because they're the ones who prosecute for air piracy, which is what hijacking is. Then the NTSB has nothing to do with it. For those people who are saying, well, in plane crash, the NTSB builds it, not the FBI, but no. In terms of air piracy, the FBI takes over. It's a felony. And involves they already knew that the plane was hijacked because the planes that were hijacked for 11 and 175 that crashed in New York. And Muhammad Atta was heard, if it was him, heard on the plane saying that they had more planes and they knew Flight 77 was traveling off off spec and they wouldn't respond. There's so much going on within that hour. Center staff members later expressed a grateful consensus that Van Alstyne ran it with such efficiency of a well-managed military operation, but with notable modesty and compassion. And, you know, it's a short video, but it's a short chapter, but just goes to show you that even with the smaller units like that, the National Command Center, and basically involved with the U.S. Army personnel and dealt with the Department of Defense personnel to work with, you know, the victims' families and to deal with their trauma about what they're going through. And it's fascinating because it's more so fascinating in terms of Pennsylvania and Washington D.C. It's because of so how well organized that these federal, city, and state officials and their departments came through, and it basically helped to investigate the matter proficiently. Whereas New York, it took a little bit of while, but that was a way bigger crime scene. This was more condensed. So, all right, listen, thank you very much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video, everybody. Have a great weekend.